We are live. Good evening, Broncos country. Welcome to another installment of the Orange and Blue View. I am one of your co hosts, Ron White. To my right, your left, is my counterpart, Thomas Hall. Good evening, Thomas. How are you doing on this nice Saturday?
Yeah, doing great, man. Kind of starving for Broncos news, of course. I mean, it's definitely the slow time, so a few things are trickling in here and there, but yeah, it's good. The weather's great. My birthday's coming up, and so it's preparing for that. And yeah, how about you? How are things?
Yeah, things are going well. Today ran some errands. The weather was nice outside, getting ready for more hot temperatures here in Georgia. So, but I would say things are going well so far. And you're right. I think we're all kind of starving for some more Broncos news, more breaking action. I
Yeah,
know we've been kind of getting some tidbits here and there, which has been good, but more good action would be great. And let's kind of look at the chat and see what we have here. So we got Kevin Gray coming in here. Thank you, Kevin. We appreciate you. He says, "Good evening, Broncos country. Thomas, Ron, and Scott. Big mile high salute to Broncos country. DBFL, MHH for life." Why, thank you, Kevin.
yeah. Thanks for
Welcome.
jumping in, Kevin.
Thank you for jumping
Appreciate it.
in. We appreciate you.
We're talking about news, so it's going to start picking up in a couple weeks, right?
Oh, yeah.
They have not announced the training camp dates yet, and I'm getting really anxious because I'm going to be there for a few days, and I know Luke Patterson, my co-host on Wednesday, is going to be there, so I'm looking forward to it. We'll be bringing some news that way, but man, I'm waiting for it to drop. Last year, it dropped middle of June. When those training camp dates were going to come up, and they haven't said anything yet that I've seen. And that's what I'm waiting for the most, right? Is when is training camp? Because I think training camp is going to tell quite a tale, right?
Yeah.
For this upcoming season. So hopefully that's announced soon.
Yes. And I was looking for those dates as well. I haven't seen anything drop. And, that coverage, from you and Luke is going to be awesome. So I cannot wait
Yeah.
to get you guys' take, once that kicks off, for sure. And then we got Dominique Martin coming in here. Thank you, Dominique. We appreciate you as always. Says, "Hey, Broncos family, MHH for life. Orange and Blue View rocks." Why, thank you, Dominique. We appreciate, your comments and your praise. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Dominique. Thanks for being here. It's always fun to have you in the show. We're going to talk a little bit about some news that came out. I mean, it's not like earth-shattering news or anything, but the new offensive line coach Zach Strief talked a little bit about why he came to Denver with Sean Payton. So we're going to get into that, which is interesting. I think it tells a little bit of a tale about what we have come to expect from Sean Payton. So I think it's interesting, and he's an up and coming kind of riser in the football ranks, right? I mean, in the coaching ranks, really. He's he spent a couple years as an assistant offensive line coach, and then Sean Payton hired him as the offensive line coach. But he's got a lot of experience. He was an offensive lineman for a long time with the Saints and a couple years, and to me, I really like those player coaches, right? Some of them don't pan out, but a lot of them do. And I think it matters a lot to the players, right? To have those player coaches because they can kind of relate to them a little bit more, maybe, instead of somebody who hadn't really played at a high level and just became a coach. Not that they have to play, right? I mean, they don't have to be players, but I think it adds a little something to maybe the locker room. But anyway, so it's interesting to hear what he had to say. So we'll grab a few more of these comments and welcome people in, and then we'll jump into it.
Yes, most definitely, Thomas. And I'm going to get into that because you're definitely right. He did have some great things to say. We have Mike S. coming in here. Thank you, Mike. He says, "What's up, Thomas, Ron, Scott, Dylan, and Broncos country?" Well, what's up with you, Mike? Hopefully you're having a lovely Saturday. Of course, if you have any other comments, questions, please drop them into the chat and we will look at them. We got Jesse Hilborn coming in. He says, "Hello, everyone." Well, hello to you as well, Jesse. Hopefully you're having a great Saturday. Ernie Mays coming in here. He says, hello, Thomas and Ron. Go Broncos country only. Yes. I love this comment, Ernie. Thank you very much. We are the only one that matters.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank
I know
you
we've
very
got,
much.
we've got these Raiders fans out there, tweeting out that they're 6-0 against the Broncos and all this stuff. And you know what? It's a new season coming up. You guys can, these fans can rest on what has happened in the past or whatever. We'll see what happens this year. And I think they're going to be eating their words.
And that is why I cannot wait until week 1 to shut them up, Thomas. Like, it's going to be, I am glad that we drew them first on the schedule. Because you're right. Yeah. They've been on Twitter flashing their 6-0 record the past few years. And I'm just like, that's all going to change week 1. We have a new sheriff in town. So
yeah. And it's fine. They've earned it, right? I mean, they're fans of a team that's beaten the Broncos, but the thing of it is we don't go back and say, oh, well, yeah, we were 7-0 back in the Shanahan days. And we were, you won twice in a 13-year period. We won Super Bowls, right? The Broncos, right. We watched the Broncos win Super Bowls in this time and, and win divisions. And so it doesn't really bother me too much, but it does. It would be nice to shut them up a little.
Yes, definitely. It will happen, definitely. And then it's Thomas and Ron. Well, it's Keith. Hey, Keith.
Thanks for being here, Keith.
Thank you for coming in here. We appreciate it. And then we got Gary Palmer. Hello, Broncos country. Legend.
Thanks for
coming Gary, how are you doing? Hope all is well on your side. Thank you for jumping in. We appreciate it. And then we got Roy Osborne. He says, good evening, Ron, Thomas, and Scott. Well, it's just me and Thomas today, but we will give Scott the regards. He says, lame duck season in full force until training camp. Yeah,
it's true. Yeah, I mean, I'm starving for Broncos news. I mean, there's always something to talk about for sure, but there's nothing earth shattering. There's nothing like going on that's super interesting. But that's all going to change pretty soon. Once they open that up to the public, that training camp, I think fans are going to get a lot more excited. I think a lot of them are cautious optimism, but I think they're going to see those that went last year and then to the training camp, and then those that are going to go this year to go watch. I think they're going to see a little bit different training camp, a little bit more pointed in their approach, I think, than they were last year. So I think that's when people are going to start to get excited, right? And then you can have preseason and stuff. And I think it's going to start to all come into fruition here for the Sean Payton led Broncos.
Yes, definitely. And thank you, Roy, again. And, again, I know you mentioned lame duck season, not too much right now, but let's get into the topic that we have here. So as Thomas alluded to earlier, Zach Strief, the new offensive line coach for the Denver Broncos, made some interesting comments in regards to following Sean Payton, kind of following in his footsteps, Payton being the mentor that he is to Strief, which was the reason why he made that decision to move to Denver. So I'm going to give you a little bit about Strief if you haven't known already. Of course, he was drafted in 2006 out of Northwestern. And he played right tackle for the New Orleans Saints from 2006 to 2017. And he was the offensive line coach, the assistant offensive line coach, 2021 to 2022. And then, of course, now he's in Denver. So what I like about these comments, and I'm going to read a little tidbit here of kind of what he said. So basically what Strief was saying was, now listen, there were always going to be pressure no matter what. I'd rather have the pressure of getting two really good players, and those two players, of course, the ones we drafted in free agency, McGlinchey and Powers, to play with the other three really good starting players. I think that this group is doing that. The pressure on the line always exists because our failures become team failures, and our successes, fortunately, are team successes. If you get to the end of the year and it doesn't go well, it was probably us. We've addressed that in the room, and yeah, they're stressed with that. But wouldn't you rather have that on your shoulders rather than be reliant on the other group to do it? And Thomas, I love what Strife said. It's accountability. It's making sure that, the offensive line can do their job, hold up their end of their bargain at the end of the day. And he is going to be a great coach in helping them do that. We know what McGlinchey brings. I'm a big fan of Powers. See what he was able to do with the Ravens. That's actually one of my favorite free agent pickups this offseason for Denver. So getting those two players, and what I'm interested to see, and I think you alluded to earlier, is how his voice is going to resonate with these other starting players, particularly Garrett Bowles.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see, just because, Strife played tackle, and having a former tackle to kind of mentor Bowles, to help Bowles, to get him out of those bad tendencies, I think is going to bode well for him and the entire offensive line. And it's also going to be interesting to see how he does with Cushenberry. We, as we all know, that's kind of the weakest link as of right now on the offensive line. But it's going to be interesting to see how his voice kind of resonates, of course, with the entire offensive line, but with those two particularly, and how this team builds from that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first and foremost, he was, he didn't come into the league as a ready-made starter. He had to work for what he got. Right. He came in and he didn't play that much to begin with. He played guard for a while and then worked his way into the starting right tackle position. So I think, people look back on that, players look back on that, they realize he wasn't just handed something. He had to work for it. And that, I think that gives him a little bit more respect maybe in the locker room, as opposed to someone that was the golden boy coming in and, just got the starting job handed to him. But that also means that he had to learn, he had to, change his game a little bit, learn to play in the NFL. And I think that's going to help him to teach some of those things to, like Cushenberry, like you said. And, I don't think I think Garrett Bowles, he showed that he can be a good player. I'm a little worried coming back from his injury, and, he wasn't that, same higher level player that he was the year prior to his injury, prior to last year. But I'm not as worried. I'm worried about his, ability to bounce back from the injury. Hopefully it doesn't hamper him at all, but you're right. I think there's some question marks on the offensive line still, and it is Bowles and it is Cushenberry, but his ability to teach, and I think that's what really what Sean Payton likes is his ability to teach the offensive line. Last year, I think was impacted. Butch Berry didn't have that approach. He really wasn't that teacher. He wasn't that guy that could meld the offensive line together. So I'm looking forward to see what he does. I really am. And I think that he already has respect, even though he's, been coaching for a short time. I think he has respect in that locker room and with that group of people. But I think the offensive line, the big thing is he needs to develop their identity. Right. I mean, I asked Mark Schlereth once on Twitter, like, what do they need to do? Develop an identity is one of them. And I think that's what he needs to do first and foremost, is develop that identity. And we'll see what it is. But I think it has a lot to do with, lining up and really just using power on power against the defensive line is what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. And I think that's what's going to happen. It seems as though, Peyton's going to be emphasizing that running game, power of attack, and with Zach Strief's help and expertise, that's what this, again, hopefully that will shape and form this identity that we're thinking of. So I'm going to go back to the chat. We got Gary Palmer coming in here with a $9.99 super chat. Thank you, Gary. We appreciate you as always.
Thanks for the support.
Thank you. He says, "Evening, Thomas and Ron. Is everyone getting itchy for the season to begin? I am. Go Broncos, buck 'em." Yes, Gary. For me, they're not really. I mean, there's baseball on now. There's MLS, which I'll tune into every now and again. But my favorite, I just love football. And granted, watching the news is good, kind of looking at the tidbits, but actually looking at action on the field, I'm really excited for that. So I am I'm more than ready for the season to begin. So
Yeah.
I know they're going to be there. Thomas and Luke on the ground, and there's going to be even more. So it's going to be exciting. I'm ready for it for sure, Gary.
And I think it has to do with is Sean Payton. They spend a lot of money, draft picks. Is he going to really make an impact? I think people want to see an impact early on, and I know that it's that may be wishful thinking to some. That we've watched them be so bad for so many years that just a winning season would be great, but they went out and spent a lot of money, and they spent a lot of draft picks to bring in a coach and to fix this thing and to fix it quickly, right? I mean, we're going to want to see results, and I think the ownership does too. So that first few games in the season is going to tell a lot, and I think people are anxious to get there. Like, we're anxious to get there to see if this investment, not only just in Sean Payton, but they spent the most in free agency. Are these investments going to pay off, and how big are they going to pay off? And we won't know until those real live games start. So I'm not trying to rush summer by. I love summer, but man, fall coming around and football season, it's always great. So thanks, Gary, for the support. I mean, it's awesome to have you here as always.
Yes. Thank you, Gary, again. And we got Linda Clark coming in here. Thank you, Linda. She says, I think the Broncos will be stronger. I do as well. And to your point, Thomas, of instant impact, I think the schedule favors that. The first quarter of the season, the Broncos could easily go 3-1, 4-0, based on that. So, we'll see how it all, matriculates out in the field. But you're right. I don't think it is partly wishful thinking, because we have been bad for so long. The coaching hasn't been up to par. And it's just kind of been a lot of bad all over the field. But I think now, with this competent coaching staff in place and the optimism of the staff and the players, I think we'll see those wins start to stack. And we can only have good faith. Again, it's going to be a good winning season. At least that's what I predict. But again, we can't know for sure until the pads hit the ground.
Yeah, you won't know until it's live action, right?
Yeah.
Even preseason, right? It tells you a little bit, but it doesn't tell you the whole tale for sure. So we'll see we'll see when the pads go on and stuff starts happening. But I'm gonna grab Patrick Wiltsey saying aloha from the Oahu chapter of Broncos country. Thanks, Patrick, and mahalo, or I don't know. What do you say? Say, I don't know, something. But aloha. Thank you so much for coming in and being here with us today on our Saturday. It's a lovely Saturday out there. It's getting hot. Summer's here. It's going to be. Although there was some pretty crappy weather up there in Denver this last week. So Jesse Hilborn's coming in saying. Talking about Zach Strief, he seems to be competent and well-spoken, already leaps and bounds better than last year, and we've seen nothing yet. Yeah, it's true. I mean, the problem is very limited amount of time with these coaches. It seemed like last year there was, everybody was talking all the time, but when they do get their chance, everybody seems to be saying the same thing, right? That they seem like they're competent. They're saying the right things. They seem like they know they're not, they're not. It's not like the first time they've ever. They don't seem like it's the first time they've ever been up at the podium. So that confidence speaks well, right? In my mind.
Yeah, and good point, Jesse. And it all trickles down, from Sean Payton, right? I think having him as that mentor, to help out, trickles down to a lot of these, these position coaches, the line coaches. So, it's good. It is good and encouraging. That they're saying the right things, but again, we will have to see. We got Austin coming in here. Thank you, Austin H. He says, Ron, do you think Bowles might be too seasoned to fix his bad tendencies? Sometimes you can't teach old dog new tricks. Thank you, Austin. You bring up a good point. I wouldn't say, when was Bowles drafted? 2016?
2018, I believe.
2018. Okay. So 5 years. Of course, he does have his experience, but I don't think, he's too seasoned to learn, from a essentially a player who's played the position from 2006 to 2017. I mean, Strife has years under his belt, with Payton and the game. So, having him come in and kind of implement some of the tendencies, kind of cleaning up some of the holdings and whatnot, I think it can only help. And I think that can be done with Jack Strife at the helm. Now, again, I don't see it being done within obviously a one season. I think it's going to take some time, for Bowles. And we've seen Bowles actually somewhat improve from when he came in. So there's been some improvement with Bowles, and I think there's still some improvement to go. It's just a matter of, some of those boneheaded plays are still there. And I think with Strife's expertise, he can kind of help mitigate some of that. At least I hope. So again, we'll have to see. But again, in my mind, I think Strife can definitely help in that regard.
Yeah, I was wrong. I was a year off. It's 2017 he was drafted. But Austin,
okay.
What I'd say is, he came into the league in 2017 and, he had the holding problems and, it was everybody's kind of making fun of him and, had 3 years of that. And then he got a good teacher, right? He got Munchak to come in and teach him. And, it was a turnover of offensive line coaches and everything. I mean, there was a lot to be, a lot to that was going on with Garrett Bowles' progress, right? But even after being there for 3 years, you end up, you could say it's starting to get become an old dog, but the teaching helped him tremendously, and you saw it in 2020. He had one holding penalty after he'd had 6 or 7 the year before, a couple of for each year before. So he can learn, he can evolve in those, old dog getting taught new tricks. These guys are always learning, right? The football players are always learning, always changing. And he's got, from what I can tell, he's got a good teacher again. So I think he'll be okay. I'm more worried about the, his recovery from that injury. I'm sure he's okay. It wasn't like a devastating injury or anything, but hopefully he can come back, get a little, refine his game a little bit more and get back to that 2020 level of play, hopefully. But yeah, he definitely has improved. He's gotten a little bit better each year. And that, I think, last year was just one of those years with a offensive line coach that didn't really help the team well. So hopefully that isn't the case now.
Yeah. And I want to bring this up because it kind of, adds to kind of what we were saying. William Catalano. Thank you, William, for coming in. He says left tackle is one of the hardest positions in the league. I think people forget that. And you're right. Now, I don't want to use this as an excuse for Bowles at all. But left tackle is definitely a very hard position to play in the league. But as we just mentioned, Bowles came in struggling. And with the teacher of Munchak, he was able to turn that around into an above average play in 2020. So again, the all players on both sides of the lines, right? Defensive, offensive line, they're always learning, and I think with the added experience, and then also we have to know they have to learn Sean Payton's way as well. So Sean Payton and Strife's way of doing things. So you have to kind of take that into consideration. But yeah, William, thank you. That's a good point. That it is definitely a hard position to play. But I would say, after that turnaround, and he was able to learn from Munchak, Bowles has been, solid. Again, there's still some tendencies every now and again. There's still penalties that come up, and you're like, Bowles, what are you doing? But I would say overall, it's good. So again, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, and it's an important position too, right? Left tackle, and they've all got to come together. It's not just one person. The offensive line needs to gel together. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a night and day difference between last year and this year. And I hope that Bowles can kind of take that next step. He has to. It's getting to the point where he needs to be the he needs to be the star of that offensive line, really. One of them, at least.
Yes, definitely. Okay, then we got Keith coming in here. Thank you, Keith. He says, Thomas, give me a former Bronco we can compare to Ben Powers, Ron's favorite guy.
Yeah, I love Ben Powers. He's a big, strong, point of attack guy. I would go maybe with Louis Vasquez, fairly recent, back in the 2013, he was a big guy, kind of a power guy. I can't think of anybody from, way back. Yeah, maybe Orlando Franklin, when they moved him to guard, was kind of in that mold a little bit. Which I still think was a mistake to do. They had been searching for a right tackle ever since. But yeah, those are two names that kind of come to mind. I can't think of any real, 80s to 90s power guys that were on the team that have that kind of size that Powers brings, right? But somebody like Louis Vasquez kind of comes to mind. But the Broncos, during their heyday in the late 90s, early 2000s, were all had light, mobile guys. So you have to, I kind of have to go to John Fox, that kind of offensive that he had was a little bit more, power, I guess. But to me, I can't really think of anybody that kind of matches Ben Powers, in the past. But I'm looking forward to see it. Yeah, I like I said before, I'm looking forward to this offensive line. Hopefully can impose their will, when they need to run down that clock for a 4-minute offense, just have them run right behind Ben Powers is fine with me. It'll be fun to watch. And hopefully they can do that.
Yes. Can you just imagine the push, the mauling with Powers and Miners with Javonte Williams? Like it's going to be a beautiful thing to watch, guys. Like
Yeah.
I just cannot wait to see, this offensive line take shape and just how Javonte Williams and Samaje P. Ryan are just going to eat. It's going to be lovely.
Yeah, and that I just wanted to say thanks, Keith, for the Facebook stars on that comment. Really
Yes,
appreciate it.
thank you, Keith.
It's great to see you out here in the chat all the time, but the support is even better. So thank you.
Better, thank you. And then I want to get back to some more Strife's comments here. So he further states that the other thing that was really big is that this has been a chance for me to see building a program from the backside. I've seen him, Payton, do this from the front side, and you don't like it as much from the front side. It's a lot more fascinating from where we're at right now. I'm a young coach, and the ability to get to see that from somebody like him is invaluable. But at the end of the day, Sean's my guy. And if Sean called, there's no way I'm telling him no. I would be here, and it's a huge honor to get here. Me and my wife say all the time that we're so glad we're able to do it. We love it here, and we're excited for the future here. So again, Sean Payton called. He's not going to turn him down. He's encouraged, obviously, by what they have on the line. Him able to kind of see the line take shape, right? Looking at it, from the back end, looking at the players bringing in or helping with Sean Payton to bring in McGlinchey and Powers. It's going to be fascinating. So again, it's going to be interesting to see him as a young coach with Payton's tutelage develop, and for him to kind of be that mentor to this line and see this line take shape. Some of the calls, some of the tendencies, some of the emphasis on pass protection plays, and then the ground game plays. So it's going to be interesting seeing him formulate some of those schematics on the back end for sure.
Yeah, and what he said, the kind of the rebuilding of this team back to what it should be, right? That was interesting for me to hear, right? Because the coaches see it, right? The coaches know that Sean Payton's capable of doing that. And I'm not saying that they're rebuilding per se, but they are making some significant changes. And when you go back and you look at what Sean Payton did when he came to New Orleans, he made some pretty big changes. Obviously, they got future Hall of Fame quarterback in Drew Brees, but made wholesale changes to much of that offense. And he's doing the same thing now, right? So there's optimism. And he took that team from a 3-13 season the year prior to a 10-6 season That's a 7-game swing in one season. So there's reason for optimism. And I think that's what, when you think about his comment that he, obviously they're friends, right? They have a personal relationship that, they've been together for a long time. So that's part of it. But I think the other part of it is that, he's here to come in and watch and help with this reconstruction of this great franchise and get them back to where their rightful place, right? Their rightful place in the NFL. Because these last 6 seasons has not been Broncos caliber football. And I think that's the interesting thing to kind of glean from that comment is he's seen it as a player. Now he wants to see it as a coach, right? Because he's bought in, and I think everybody's pretty much bought in. They're saying the right things and they're doing the right things.
Yes, most definitely. And then we got Divine Breaks coming in here with a $20 super chat. Thank you, Divine Breaks. We appreciate your generosity. He says, sorry I am late. No worries. Great to see you guys. Good to see you as well. He says, if Wilson does not bring his former self back, what's the strategy for next year? QB options, etc. I'll let you go first on this one. I'm curious to see what you said.
Yeah,
I'll go.
If Wilson does not go back to his former self or close to it, it's going to be a disaster, right? I mean, the Broncos have spent a lot of money. They gave him that big contract, thinking that he was going to be his former self. And from my perspective, I think he'll bounce back, right? Everybody's kind of predicting it. It's a better run organization now from top to bottom. They're going to get the best out of him. He's putting the time in and everything. But say he doesn't, right? It's a disaster if he doesn't next year, right? It's bad. But the problem is they're going to be good enough to not be picking number one, right? They were a disaster last year, but they still won, enough games that they weren't in a position to get into the number one slot. Plus, they've traded a bunch to get Russell Wilson and to get Coach Payton. So they're not gonna have the ammunition really to move up to get the number one draft. So basically, what they're gonna end up doing is probably gonna have to see what they can do to kind of take that hit if Wilson isn't going to be able to stick around. They'll have to take a monetary hit. And they're probably going to have to go out and try to find a veteran that Payton can work with, right? In hopes that they can get themselves in position to take and I would imagine they would take a quarterback in next year's draft too, right? They're going to try and to fill it in, but there's really not, the options aren't great for next year. In the year after, knowing that they're probably not going to be able to tank, right? To get that high in the draft. So all fingers are crossed that Wilson is going to bounce back. I think he will, but yeah, it'll be a tough time for the next couple of years until they find somebody. And it would be a veteran that Sean Payton's comfortable bringing in.
Yes. Thank you, Divine, again. And I agree. I think that the next year's draft, if Wilson doesn't bounce back, Sean Payton's going to look at getting a quarterback to develop in next year's draft, but they're also going to look at the veteran market for quarterbacks, and they're probably going to prioritize someone that Sean Payton has worked with before, kind of as a holdover until they can, get the one that they drafted to kind of be that competent starter. But I agree. I think Wilson will bounce back. I think, everything's in place now. And there are really no excuses. We have the offensive line. We have the coaching in place. Of course, the receivers have already been there. So I think there's no excuse for Wilson not to bounce back. I do see him coming back. But yeah, look at, of course, them drafting a quarterback, maybe in the mid rounds next year, and then bringing in that veteran kind of as a holdover.
I just, when I look back at Sean Payton drafting quarterbacks, he wasn't really that successful, right? He had his quarterback, right? He had his quarterback in Drew Brees, but he drafted a few, through the years, and they never really amounted to a whole lot that I remember. And he had to bring in some other veterans, in a replacement of Drew Brees. So Will he be able to hit on a quarterback in the draft? That's a big question, but he's going to take some swings for sure. Absolutely. And he has to, even if Russell Wilson does bounce back, he's going to have to take some swings in the draft and, see if he can develop some of those mid-round guys. And I mean, that's a smart thing to do regardless.
Yes, definitely.
We're going to grab Jesse Hilborn's comment here saying, oh, and Divine Breaks, I didn't say thank you. Thank you very much for the super chat. Appreciate it very, very much. Jesse Hilborn saying, I really hope Forsyth can stand out and start at some point this year. I love the other 5, including Manhurts. So do I. This is a great name, Manhurts. What a great name for a football player and a big tight end. It says, guys on that line, and to have a young, smart kid there would be benefit us drastically. Yeah, the thing about Forsyth is he wasn't a great tester, but he's a better player, right? He's not an athletic guy. And I think not being able to do the like the Senior Bowl or whatever, the Shrine Bowl, going to do the testings didn't really help his draft stock. But everybody that saw that draft pick, that old offensive lineman that I saw, seemed to like him a lot. So, but the problem I have is he may not be ready this year, right? He may not be ready to take on that starting role. And I think it's going to be Fuller. If Cushenberry falters, Fuller is going to be the one that steps in and probably takes that center duty. So I really think this season we have to rely on the offensive line coach Strief and Sean Payton to put Cushenberry in the right, get him up and ready to roll, right? Get him better, ready to play every game. And I know people are worried about it. They don't seem to be that worried about it, but yeah, I think it's going to be if Forsyth does end up starting, it's probably because they've had 2 injuries to the offensive line at center, and that's probably before he gets his spot. But I like him. I like what he brings. I think he's a player rather than a athlete, and that someone who's smart enough to play the center position. So that's what you need. But I don't know if he's ready to jump in there. If he is, that's awesome. I mean, I'd be happy if he is that good that he can step in there, right away. Then that they got a huge steal in the draft.
Yeah, thank you, Jesse, for your comment. Appreciate it again. And regarding Forsyth, I mean, from what I've seen on the tape, him at Oregon, he definitely does stand out. He's a great center. What I was able to see on that offensive line for Oregon was great. It's just a matter of he's not at a point where he can start. They draft. There's a reason why he fell. There's a reason why the Broncos got him in the 7th round. He's more of that developmental type of center. So the Broncos are really hoping that Cushenberry can turn this thing around. And we have to be right there with them of encouraging and hoping and being optimistic that Cushenberry can hold up his end of the bargain, can hold up at the point of attack, can, take command of these calls that are coming in. We've seen it last season where he just, he wasn't able to hold up and he looked like a deer out there in the headlights. So, we're hoping for that to happen. Now, of course, if he gets injured, the next one up at bat would be Kyle Fuller. I just don't think, Forsyth is good enough to take that starting role. And yeah, I like, as far as the other ones on the line, I like Manhurts. He was brought in to, help with blocking. Obviously, there's familiarity there with Payton as well. So coming in, helping with blocking would be great. And then, of course, having the young, smart kid would definitely benefit the entire team. So, but yeah, let's see, how Forsyth kind of continues and develops along this path. And who knows, he might, the development time may come quick, right? He can be that starter, let's say in 2024, 2025. But right this year, starting in 2023 in September, you're going to see Cushenberry being your starting center.
Yeah, and let's remember too, Sean Payton only started a rookie one time out of necessity until the 2019 season, right? So he didn't rely on rookies. He went out and he liked veterans at the center position. The first rookie starter was due to because Olin Kreutz got injured and couldn't play, so they kind of were forced his hand. But he had planned to have a veteran start at center. It wasn't until Eric McCoy that he started a rookie at center, with the intent of having him be the starter. And he was a second round draft choice, and it was a good pick, right? So they liked him, and he was a really good player that didn't fall in the draft. So it's hard to think that they're going to force him into a starting role. But like I said, if he can take that starting role, that's awesome. I mean, then you've got an absolute steal of a draft pick if he's able to push his way into a starter sometime this season, even because of an injury. If he can push his way into starter, that's huge. I want to see Manhurts out there. I used to think, I said this before, like I remember Orson Mobley, big, huge. He was one of those great big tight ends. Never really amounted to what they had hoped him to be. But Dan Reeves used to have him going in motion and get a full head of steam and run right into the hole. Time it just right. And I'd like to see Manhurts with the big, head of steam going through the hole, clobbering people. So I'm looking forward to Manhurts. He's not going to be that dynamic tight end that we want to, see out there in the passing game, but he's going to help in the running game for sure.
Yeah. We can't wait to see those blocking skills come to fruition for Manhurts for sure.
You got Gary Palmer coming and saying, "In Sean, I trust," and we all have to at this point, right? He's running the show, and we kind of have to be on board. So hopefully he is the guy that does it for the Broncos. I think he will. I mean, he's a good coach.
Yeah, I mean, thanks, Gary, and we all trust in Sean. We all have to trust in Sean at this point. The Broncos, move head on earth to get him. And, everything now that is coming out of Dove Valley, how can you not? So we have to trust. And I'm going to fire off. I do see a few more comments. And this has been great discussion, guys, in regards to, Cushenberry and the offensive line. So we got Ants Visual coming in here. Thank you, Ants. He says, it does seem like Russell is very confident in Cush, though. And then we got Gary coming back in here. He says, we don't know that Cush will be the starter. If he is, no one took it away. And then Mike S. with, I'd be surprised if Cushenberry wasn't the starter. And going back to Ance's point, that does seem to be true, Ance, that Russ is also very confident in Cushenberry. I think there were some comments not too long ago that Russ made that he seems very optimistic that, Cushenberry can, play well, can play the starting center position well. And, we'll have to see. And again, Mike S., we haven't seen anything coming out that says that, Cushenberry is not going to be the starter. It's like, what have we seen anything negative or bad about Cushenberry in this offense? I haven't heard anything. So, that would lead me to believe that, Cushenberry is going to be your starting center week one. Again, he has to prove himself. He has to go out there and put in the work. I know people have been pining for Forsyth, but with the draft pedigree of Cushenberry, the Broncos are really looking for him to take that next step. And now with Strief, let's see. It's more of a wait and see, and hopefully Cushenberry can be up to the challenge.
Yeah, and the other thing too that they're gonna want somebody that's versatile along that interior offensive line that can be the backup, that can swing through there. And Fuller fits the bill. He can play guard and center. And then it could be Forsyth, it could be Wattenberg, it could be anybody who takes that other role. But if from what I've seen, the moves that they've made for depth, it's versatility. They brought back Cam Fleming, who can play both left and right tackle, so he's going to be the backup there for the most part. And then Fuller. So I don't know if that's where they're going to go, and if they want somebody more versatile, you'll probably see that drafted center in the 7th round there be maybe a practice squad guy for a little while. Before he gets called up. So unless he's got the ability to really kind of move through the offensive line, play any position, you might see them want to develop him a little bit more so they can get more versatile people in those backup roles.
Yes. Definitely. All right, just
Yeah,
going.
and I will say this too about Cushenberry, right? They were singing his praises last year. People were coming out, players were coming out saying he's, putting in the work, he's doing it. The problem with that last year was maybe he was putting in the work, but he didn't really fit. His style didn't really fit the offense that they were running very well. I don't think so. That kind of made it look even worse for him. But the big thing for him, he needs to be better at the point of attack. He can't be bull rushed. That's the problem, right?
Yes.
He is, and hopefully this whole emphasis on strength and conditioning and getting that ready before anything else implemented helped Cushenberry a lot, because he seemed like he had, coming out of college, he seemed like he was more of a power guy, but he was getting bull rushed too easily, and that's the big thing. If he can work on that, fix that, I think he's going to be a solid enough starter that they're going to be happy with him, because I think he has the other things, right? He has the ability to play do the other things of that a center is required, but he just didn't hold up at the point of attack. He had that big size, he looked the part, but he wasn't doing it. So if they can get that, then out of him, then I think he's going to be very serviceable. But they're already making plans for his departure, right? That's why they drafted that center. Yeah. He's an unrestricted free agent. So even if he plays really well, he's probably gone anyway. Yeah. So you're going to see Forsyth at some point, probably in the near future.
Yeah, definitely. All right.
And Ants actually came in and said it's hard to take away the work that Russ and Cush have put in together, and that's true, right? They've worked together for it'll be 2 years now, 2 off seasons, I should say. So but they're confident in him. They've already. That's the thing is, they haven't made a lot of contingency plans for him, right? So they brought in one guy, Kyle Fuller, on a 1-year deal, and they drafted a 7th round center. If they were really concerned about Cushenberry, I think they would have put more of an emphasis on trying to get somebody earlier.
Right.
But they didn't. Yes. It's like the running back position, right? Like they've been saying, we're not worried about it. Why is everybody saying we got to go get Dalvin Cook? And why is everybody saying we got to go, address the running back position? Because they've been saying all along that Williams is going to be back, and their actions have actually, been loud. They've saying the thing, but their actions have been loud as well. So, they have made it clear that Cushenberry is the guy until he's not.
Yeah, and this is another good point, Ant. They've already established that chemistry. Obviously we know Cushenberry hasn't played up to expectations, but there is chemistry, between the two. So, you're right, Thomas. It's they didn't prioritize center, in this past draft. So that kind of led you to know that that they're higher on Cushenberry than we are. Now, again, they did kind of start to map out the future for that position. Even if he doesn't start in 2024, he's probably going to be making a lot of money if he plays well next year. But that all goes to say I'm still interested to see, as a developmental guy, what Forsyth can bring. And, hopefully, again, that comes sooner than later. Again, because the tape I've seen is very promising. He's able to hold up at that point of attack. I mean, getting the calls and holding up with the calls. What I saw at Oregon was very promising. So again, time will tell. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and there's other points of view, right? I mean, we have other shows that I'm sure that they've talked about it. So I'd like to hear some of the other folks with what they think. But definitely check out the other shows. I mean, we've got Mile High Huddle's got a show every night and a show every morning except Wednesday morning, I think. And so definitely go out and check those out, and go check out Keith's article about what we were talking about today. He wrote it up, and some interesting comments, and so go check out those articles and whatnot. But I think we should start winding down the show, Ron. It's almost at the top of the hour, and unless there's any burning comments that came in, we can start winding this down. But look for that date, training camp date coming out, man. I've got my Legends of Mile High. I'm kind of doing a primer what to look for at training camp. So it's kind of fun. So check that out on Friday mornings. And of course, tune in to us on Saturdays. This is just only going to get better. Going to start heating up as the season approaches.
Yes. And yeah, I'm looking forward to those training camp days as well, Thomas. And I'm looking forward to, again, seeing what you and Luke, come back with some of the perspectives, some of the observations. It's going to be a great time. We've got Michael Ronquillo coming in here.
Yeah.
Coming in late. The man, not so much a myth, but the legend as well. Thank you, Michael. We appreciate it. He says, coming in late. No worries at all. Better late than never. Says, good evening, Thomas and Ron White on Orange Blue View. Go Broncos and buck 'em. Good evening to you too, Michael. Thank you for your support as always. We appreciate you, man.
Yeah, thanks, Michael, for coming in. I know you're late getting here, but all these shows are on YouTube. Go back and watch them. You don't have to be here live. We enjoy you being here live because we can interact with you. Interact with the comments. And that's fun for us. But you catch the show. Go to YouTube, Mile High Huddle YouTube. You can see all the shows. You can see our show and watch as many times as you want.
Yes, for sure. Sure.
Yeah, David Bishop came in late too. Unfortunately, we're just winding down the show. David, thanks for being here. Sorry I missed you guys. He says, fresh off work. I'll go ahead and listen back to it while I can cook dinner. Yeah, thank you for doing that, David. Thank you. Right now it's tough. Yeah, Saturday nights in the summertime is tough, but we're going to have fun when it comes to doing previews for these upcoming games. And we're going to start in preseason, right? Hopefully if there's a Sunday game, we'll do a nice preview for you guys to get started. And it's going to be a blast. So make sure you guys tune in and tune into the other shows, like the show, subscribe, do all that stuff. I know we don't have to tell you, but we like to remind you to do that. And if you can support us, that's all the better. But yeah, let's say goodbye, Ron. Sign us off if you don't mind.
Yes. Well, again, Broncos country, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the discussion. We appreciate all of you. And, we're going to look out for those dates that are coming up. I know it's somewhat of a semi-quasi dead period. Right now, not so much news, but look for that to change. Things are going to start ramping up. As Thomas mentioned, some of the dates for training camp, and we're going to get into some of the preseason games, and then before you know it, we're going to have live, meaningful games starting in September. So, just look forward to that. In the meantime, as I mentioned, like, share, and subscribe. Tune into all of the other channels with all of the different perspectives, and that's it. I guess we'll see you next time, guys.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.